Here's a crazy idea for you. A racing game, but the vehicles have weapons. Not only can you win races using expert driving skills, but also by blasting the shit out of your competitors. It's no wonder this concept caught on in video games. But in general, there's only a few which really stuck around all that long. Mario Kart, Jak X, and Twisted Metal. But while I personally missed out on those games growing up, I did spend an absurd amount of time playing what I think is quite an underrated gem on the PS2, XGRA, Extreme G Racing Association. The Extreme G video game series began all the way back in 1997 on the Nintendo 64. It owed a lot to games like Wipeout, taking place in a futuristic setting with an emphasis on incredible speeds and elaborate track designs. But by XG3, the series changed things up a little bit and tried to cement its own identity. The gameplay and graphics were completely revamped to try and make it a bit more unique. I also had this one on the PS2 and enjoyed it plenty, but for me its follow-up XGRA is the best in the series for a few minor but important differences. The first is how much more gritty this game is compared to its predecessors. Just like Wipeout, the Extreme G series was all vibrant colours, gleaming environments, pulse-pounding techno music, and smooth, flashy movement. But the physics and overall aesthetic of XGRA feels slightly different. The backstory for the series is that by the 23rd century, Earth has essentially become a wasteland. Humanity now lives in far-off space colonies and watches the Extreme G racing tournaments from afar. And when the series began, the bikes were depicted as unmanned, remote control vehicles. But starting with XG3, this was changed to include riders actually driving the bikes. And XGRA goes through the effort of trying to make this world feel a little more real and tangible. The absurd speeds you can get up to are still there, but there's a greater sense of weight and momentum with the bikes, and all the environments seem a little bit more run down and industrial. Paradoxically, this actually makes the game more spectacular, as those moments of supersonic speed and chaos feel truly earned. It's a state of gameplay you have to fight to reach, and you have to make sure to keep your focus, otherwise you can be back to square one in a flash. The redesigned weapon system carried over from XG3 also adds to the excitement. In the original games, weapons could be purchased from in-game menus using money won in each race, and using them drained your energy. However, XG3 changed this to picking up weapons on the track itself, Mario Kart style. In XGRA, however, this is taken a step further by not only picking up weapons on the track, but selecting them as well. It can be exhilarating as you charge past your competitors, trying to get to the next power-up, select the right weapon, and pick just the right moment to use it against your opponents. In a way, it turns one big race into a series of smaller ones, and adds an element of strategy into the fast-paced thrills. However, there's another crucial component to the story mode which makes XGRA all the more engrossing: contracts. As with most racing games, there's an arcade mode where you can have fun in one-off races or challenges and so on, and there's a story mode where you play a character racing in an official championship. However, your success in this championship doesn't necessarily depend on winning races, but fulfilling contracts. These contracts can be anything from beating a certain racer, killing a certain racer, or other technical achievements. What this does is give you so much more flexibility as a player, and makes the game all the more exciting. If it looks like you're not going to win the race, you can always fall back on fulfilling your contract for that race, and vice versa. This contractual element also makes the other racer characters all the more engaging. You can end up developing rivalries with specific characters in a one-off race or across the whole championship. In a way, the game takes a leaf out of the tournament fighters. It presents the player with a large cast of colourful characters with big personalities. Now, of course, none of them are particularly deep or anything, but they're all very memorable in their own way, and it's easy to get invested in them, rooting for some to win while despising others. And this is all emergent gameplay, something created by the player. Ultimately, XGRA gets the most out of its concept, creating sub-objectives and smaller conflicts to provide the player with a far richer experience than most other racing games. And all of this is built on top of that already excellent base gameplay to begin with. It should go without saying, but the game is just fun on the face of things. In the top supersonic league, the speeds these races happen at verge on absurd, and that intensity, driven by an excellent dance and rock soundtrack, is one of the most fun and thrilling gaming experiences I've ever had. And that soundtrack does play a big part in the enjoyment of the game, though this really comes down to personal taste, I suppose, and one's tolerance for 90s techno and rock, rock is unique to the individual. And while I personally find a lot of the rock music pretty cringy in how edgy and screamy it is, the dance and techno tracks are great and have aged much better. Now I can't say I'm an aficionado with any specific artist on the soundtrack or anything, but all of BT's tracks absolutely slap. Just hearing any one of them instantly takes me back to my childhood playing XGRA until the sun came up. Which is why to this day I still find myself breaking out the old PlayStation 2 and booting up XGRA. In terms of the game's best racetracks, I have to say Scavenger City and the Outer Space Mining Dome. Scavenger City, by being one of the most simple tracks, is actually what makes it so intense. Because the circuit is relatively short and almost entirely flat, that means pretty much everyone is always in each other's weapons range. This is the ideal track for some explosive action. With up to half the competitors regularly exploding before the finish line, it can be brutal but also riveting. The mining colony, meanwhile, just has a great sense of pace to it. It flows effortlessly between claustrophobic tunnels with punishing sharp turns to wide open space vistas with gentle winding bends. Pulling out all of the sound when coming to this point of the track is also a really nice touch. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, XGRA was the last in the Extreme G game series, and it never made the leap to the following generation of consoles, which I think is a shame. Because just imagine what could be done with XGRA with today's technology. And honestly, I feel like there's room for it. Wipeout and Twisted Metal fell by the wayside in the 2010s, and racing games as a whole only occupy a small niche these days. Aside from Mario Kart, there isn't really a racing combat game which the mainstream enjoys. But with XGRA's developer and publisher Acclaim long out of business, the license is there somewhere for the taking. Personally, I don't hold out much hope for another game in the series. As I said, my PS2 is still chugging along just fine, but I do think the series could make one hell of a comeback one day, if only so more people can enjoy the supersonic thrills of racing around the solar system. Until that day, if it ever comes, if you're in the mood for some good old-fashioned couch co-op on an old-ass console, XGRA is definitely worth your time. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like what we do on this channel, give the video a thumbs up, subscribe, and make sure to hit the bell icon to keep up to date with all new uploads. We release videos every other week, so stay tuned for that. Until next time, this has been Rowan from Side Adventure. Have a good one.